Hi, Steve Riley. Welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. And it's so incredible when people are confronted with turning something around, whether it's their life or their practice, or both at the same time. And sometimes as you get older, the thought of turning things around and going and pivoting in a different direction can be very, very daunting. And I have today my special guest, my friend, John Murphy. John, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Steve. I'm honored that I'm in this queue of people that you've had who are absolutely outstanding people. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
having me.
No, thank you. No, it's a privilege to have you here. And, we just had your team leader, um, Marie Tricarico.
Very good, Steve. You got that.
And I know it takes practice for an Irish guy.
Yep.
And I'm just giving you, and there's some rumor that you're concerned that she kind of shared some things that perhaps threw you under the bus on her podcast. So this is your opportunity for total rebuttal today. So I'm just giving you opportunity any time that you want to do a rebuttal, you're more than welcome to do that.
Well,
But
Steve, she made it sound like I was totally, you know, lost when she came to save me with her spreadsheets. Um, but sometimes when we wander, we don't even know we're lost,
mm,
right? And I am incredibly thankful to her for her in my life. And yes, I was a bit, hectic and harried. And I liken it to I was trying to change horses in midstream, but my horses were my old office and my new office, which were about 20 miles apart. Right. And the court I practiced in primarily was 20 miles past that other office. So it wasn't a great spot. There's a lot of things that led up to that. And Marie's standards have helped carry us through.
so you started this practice. You and I were talking about this. So this was you haven't been in this particular practice for a long period of time. This practice was a result of a life and practice reinvention for you. And that's one of the incredible things about your story. So let's start there. So before you start this practice or when you made the decision to start the practice, what was the impetus? What was going on?
Oh, a lot of things. In 2020, I had taken a class on Medicaid and thought, well, that's interesting. And my wife's grandmother was in a nursing home, and her grandfather died. So my mother-in-law came to me and said, "Hey, can you help get mom on Medicaid?" I said, "Yeah, sure. How tough can Medicaid be?" I took a class. Wound up in courts because we were trying to do some transactions and gifts and things, and there was a elective share request from our local Department of Social Services, which does our Medicaid. And I soon found out I had no idea what I was doing. Right. I was like Alice going through the looking glass. Wait, on the other side of the glass, you can give away money. What do you mean on this side you can't give away money? So I had to humble myself, not just professionally, which is, is really hard for lawyers to do, right? We get into a case, we can figure it out as we go. What's the client going to know? But I also had to humble myself personally. This is my wife's family, and the grandfather had left money not only to his two daughters, but also his five grandchildren, of whom my wife is one, and that was difficult. It was very difficult. And to top it off, my wife had just given birth to our fourth child, and he was about 5 or 6 weeks premature, and she'd had an emergency C-section. Um, weren't sure she was going to make it through. A lot of stuff going on. But we were advised that he should not go to daycare. His lungs hadn't fully opened. He got too much anesthesia. They weren't sure what else might have going on. So suddenly, my wife, who's an RN, working full time, has our health insurance. Uh, her paycheck is going to daycare, and I'm supporting everything else. Suddenly, that paycheck is gone. That insurance is gone. And I have a solo, yes, you walked in the door with money, we'll take it practice. Primarily divorce, family court, what we call assigned counsel, representing indigents in family court and criminal law, stuff like that. And so, 5 years before school became 10 years, and I don't begrudge any of that because my children got their mom full time and she got to be a mom full time, which was great, but it was economically difficult. Um, about 2009, 2010, I really started even have some physical problems. Couldn't sleep, getting nauseous, going to court, waking up in the morning. If I hadn't been enough sleep, getting sick. And I didn't even tell you this, Steve, pre-time, but in 2009, within 6 months of each other, I lost my two best friends.
If you look back from the double your revenue, and you've done it multiple times, you exponentially increase your revenue. Talk to me about how goal setting and time management impacted your growth. Then let's take it apart first. Talk to me about goal setting, because goal setting wasn't something I think you did on a regular basis until 2013, and you started saying, okay, this is what I want. Is that fair?
Yeah, my goal before that was, can I pay the bill this
Got it.
month? Right. That was my goals. In fact, I didn't even tell you at some point in that whole 10-year period or so, I had to borrow money from my parents because we got served a foreclosure notice. Right.
Oh my
So,
God.
so we had a lot of stuff going on. So revenue goals, then backfill that into, okay, so we have two primary practice areas. We're trying to develop probate, trying to figure out a tasteful way to advertise for that. But if our revenue goal was, let's say, 100,000, if we divided that equally, we're going to need X number of trust cases. We're going to need X number of Medicaid cases, right? So early on, I went to my Medicaid department. We figured out that they could handle per person maybe 4 ongoing chronic care nursing home cases at one time, and maybe 2 to 3 community cases. So not every state has community, but in New York State, we can get Medicaid for home care and we get Medicaid for assisted living, less intense than the nursing home. And so we knew what that was. We know now, and it's really backfilling, right? What's my goal? What's my cost per file, or those types of things? What's our acquisition cost, right? We know that for our workshops. We average those out. It's really about knowing your numbers. So we used to do workshops, hard when people don't envision it, but Watertown's an hour north of Syracuse, and then an hour north of there is an area called Canton, New York. Relatively affluent for a small town. They have St. Lawrence University, which many of your listeners may know of,
Sure.
and also Clarkson University, which is one of the top engineering schools in the country, and a couple of state schools. So a lot of teachers, professors and things like that. Well, we started tracking our attendance at our workshop by zip code and then our conversion by zip code. And we get great numbers, but not great conversion.
Hmm.
So we're able to bow out of that, right? And that was an added expense that we get rid of. So the goal setting, understanding where your money's coming from, understanding geographically, everything we did, advertising had a different phone number, so we could track the source of those phone calls.
Excellent.
And then also monitoring prices. And then we reached a decision, Steve, where I got to a point where I was pretty well known. I had a good reputation as an honest, pretty good lawyer doing my other stuff. We decided not to be a transactional commodity shop. I think we're high end, but people ask me how our prices compare. I just say I don't really know, and I don't really care, because I know the value we bring, not only to the product, but to how we serve the client. And that was a conscious decision that we made along the way.
That's
And, I
perfect.
used to, when I first went down there, and Glenn Gutek was a coach for me, he said, you should never have a meeting that you don't get paid for.
I love that.
And I said, who would talk to me and charge and pay me money? Now, fast forward, okay, because then I heard this whole concept of non-attorney initials. Oh, you can't do that, right? So now I'm going to fast forward to 2023, end of 2022. If you want to come into my office, you can speak with a case manager. It's a non-attorney that I've trained, and that's $250. We'll apply it towards whatever you decide to do going forward. If you insist on meeting with John, it's $750. And we'll apply 250 towards whatever you want to do going forward.
Perfect.
Yep. And I still get people paid the 750.
What do you think the first time management strategy was that allowed you to start building? Because each one of these is a foundation. I mean, you started a turnaround in your life 10 years ago, and it's been a dramatic turnaround, both physically, emotionally, and financially. Going back, what do you think the like step one was?
Probably block scheduling
Huh. Time
and
blocking.
understanding. Yeah, and understanding I don't have to be meeting with a client 6 or 7 hours a day because I can't otherwise get my work done, right? And we set up, we no longer, there's an exception, of course, in every rule, right? But we no longer let the client set when they want to come in. Like, oh, I only have, 3:30. Well, we have meetings at 2 and at 4, whatever that is, right? Those are our times for meetings. We don't see clients on Fridays. And it is amazing how many people say I only have Fridays off. Well, I'm sorry, but we don't see clients on Fridays. Well, I can move some stuff around. Will next Thursday work? Sure. Be more than happy to work with you. So, and again, you get this from your organization, Steve. Who everyone there is invested in our business success. Absolutely. But more so, everyone in Atticus is invested in our personal success. The business success is just a way to get personal success, is how I view Atticus at this point. Coming in, I thought it was about business success. You had me fooled. Okay. So that was great. Setting that out, we're the people, you need us to solve the problem. This is how we do it. And if the power to figure out that somebody's a D client, another Atticus term, right? Because they won't even meet your scheduling requirements is powerful. The other thing that we did is my staff, my gatekeepers have the ability to say, no, they're not a client for us. I don't even have to ask John. I don't have to ask Marie. Right? So that was the other thing, is really empowering people and saying, I trust you. You know our parameters. If you're outside that parameter, sure. Yeah, let's come and talk and learn. Right? So we have a case manager meeting every week to go over cases that have come in triage so we can learn and move forward. But I don't take any initial calls, Steve. I don't see anyone until they paid us money and become a client.